This Saturday is UFC Vegas 101, Amanda Ribas versus Mackenzie Dern 2. The return after the long layoff, the first UFC Fight Night card of 2025. And this is going to be my full card predictions. I want to be excited. I so desperately want to be excited. I'm looking forward to having some fights back. But man, I wish they would have took one more week off. I wish we were returning to UFC 311. Imagine the hype heading into UFC 311, which is absolutely stacked from top to bottom. But instead, in 2025, we are returning to the UFC Apex again with a women's MMA main event. But nonetheless, it's actually a decent fight card. It's not amazing by any means. It's not the worst fight card ever. It's a horrible main event nonetheless. But we're going to get into every single fight on the card. I'm going to break down and predict every single fight. Can't wait. I'm so excited. Oh my God, this is so amazing. Can't wait. Nothing better than 4 weeks off, returning to the Apex and getting Dern versus Ribas. Is Zuck going to be there? Is Kid Rock going to be there? What are the vibes going to be like? Let's just jump right into it. Okay? Let's jump right into the card because we have a lot to discuss. We have a lot of fights. I think it's 14 fights we have to get into. The first fight of the night, we have Nurullo Aliev versus Joe Solecki. Joe Solecki is coming in on short notice. It was originally supposed to be Yanal Ashmoose fighting in this fight. I just think this is a bad stylistic matchup for Joe Solecki. Joe Solecki is primarily a grappler. He doesn't really have good striking. And he's not even like the best wrestler. Like, he has good jiu-jitsu on the ground. He has good submission ability. But he's not a guy that has amazing wrestling. And he's not like particularly amazing off his back. He's lost 3 out of his last 5. Lost to Grant Dawson in his last fight. Pretty much got dominated, out-grappled in that fight. Fight before that got slammed on his head by Jakar Close. I believe he's looking for an armbar. Lost. Then before that, got a win over Carl Deaton III. That's his last win. Carl Deaton III. Need I say more? And then a win over Alex De Silva. Lost to Jarrett Gordon via split decision. Nurullo Aliev, or Aliev, I can't remember how you pronounce it right now off the top of my head. It's coming off a win over Rafael Alves, where he out-grappled him the majority of the fight. And what's crazy is Alves fish-hooked Aliev. Aliev bit him while he was fish-hooking him, and Mark Smith took a point from Aliev. So fish-hook your opponent, and then your opponent will get a point deducted. Shout out Mark Smith. His bald head doesn't know how to ref worth a shit. Anyway, I'm going Aliev. I think Nurullo Aliev is just going to be able to use his wrestling, implement the takedowns. I think he'll be able to outstrike Joe Solecki on the feet as well. And I think unless Joe Solecki like catches a sub off the bottom, I think it was in the 3rd round, Alves almost had a guillotine on Aliev. Unless Joe Solecki catches him in like a real slick guillotine, I see Aliev outstriking him, outgrappling him, controlling him, maybe even dunking him on his head again and KOing him. I doubt the KO. I mean, Aliev is more of a decision machine. But yeah, I'm going to go Nurullo Aliev. I'm going to say decision, 30-27 decision. I don't like Joe Solecki coming in this fight anyway, and then he's taking it on short notice. Don't like it even more. I'm going to leave it Aliev via dominant decision, 30-27 decision. Next fight on the card, Fatima Kline versus Victoria Dudakova. What a banger. What a banger. Both formerly undefeated, both lost in their, I believe, UFC debuts. No, I'm wrong. Dudakova actually had a couple UFC fights. I'm an idiot. But we never really got anything concrete. She lost to Sam Hughes in her last fight via split decision. Competitive fight, but really didn't have a great gas tank. Before that, she beat Jinyu Fry. Before that, she got to Stella Nunes, where, you know, it was kind of a fluke injury early, so we didn't really get to see that much. And we really don't know how good Dudakova is. And then Kline made her UFC debut in her last fight against Jasmine Jadavicius. Looked okay on the feet, but just got out-grappled. Had some moments in the first round. She even got a takedown on Jasmine, but would get reversed. Look, I think this could go either way, which is crazy because Tapology, I'm just seeing now, Dudakova is a heavy underdog, apparently plus 550. But I think this is one of those lower level. They're not horrible. They're not the bottom of the barrel, like atrocious to watch women's MMA fighters. But it's one of those fights that could go either way. Dudakova, I feel like, is going to want to use her grappling. She has decent wrestling. She has okay striking. But I don't think her wrestling is good enough to be able to dominate Kline like Jasmine Jadavicius did on the ground. And I think Kline's striking is better. So I'm going to pick Fatima Kline to get it done. I think basically the fight's going to be primarily standing. I think she'll be able to outstrike Victoria Dudakova. And I think she'll probably win the decision. So both of them were undefeated up until their last fight, which is insane. So, but losing to Sam Hughes, I'll take a loss to Jasmine Jadavicius over Sam Hughes any day. So I'm going Fatima Kline. I'm going to pick her via decision. Next fight on the card, we have Magomed Gadzhiyasulov versus Bruno Lopes. I think this is a fairly easy fight to pick. You have to go Magomed Gadzhiyasulov. I just think he's way better than Bruno Lopes. Bruno Lopes is making his UFC debut. He fought on Dana White's Contender Series in his last fight. I think he even got rocked badly. I think it was in the first round. Came back, ended up getting a finish with a body shot. He's just a guy that's kind of like an okay striker. You know, you really didn't see him mixing the grappling that much. His takedown defense held up on Dana White's Contender Series, but it's not against the most elite competition. Gadzhiyasulov's coming off a win over Brenson Haberio, who actually has a win over Bruno Lopes on his first attempt on Dana White's Contender Series. Dana White's Contender Series is so desperate to churn out talent, they're just having the same guys on there over and over and over again until they win, and then they get a contract. So I think this fight's pretty easy to pick. Magomed Gadzhiyasulov is going to be able to out-grapple him, is decent at range. I think Lopes is gritty and has decent power. Maybe he could find a shot on the feet. But I don't see him getting it done. Gadzhiyasulov is pretty well-rounded, has good cardio. Actually got out-grappled a bit by Haberio in the first round in their fight. Took some time off since that fight. I thought he looked decent in there. I thought his striking looked good. His grappling looked good. I think he'll basically implement the grappling against Bruno Lopes. And I think Lopes... What's crazy is, why does the UFC website say 1-1? I mean, they don't update these websites properly. On Tapology, it's just 13-1. Either way, I think Magomed Gadzhiyasulov is just more well-rounded, undefeated, going to get it done. Could he get clipped and KO'd? Sure, but I think he's decent enough on the feet, has actually decent kicks, and I think he'll implement the wrestling, be able to take Bruno Lopes down, control him, beat him up, and win the fight. Next fight on the card, we have, I don't want to butcher this name. We have Ernesto Kareckaite versus Nicolo Caliari, I think is how you pronounce it. Kareckaite versus Nicolo Caliari. I'm butchering these names today. Especially this fight, I don't care about it at all, to be honest. Listen, this is a weird fight to pick. Caliari is actually how I think you pronounce it. I don't know why. I was just stressing too much. I was going to mispronounce it, which I probably did. But Caliari made her UFC, or not, this is her UFC debut. She fought on Dana White's Contender Series. She looked decent, got an armbar there. Was actually getting out-grappled a bit in that fight, but she's like super muscular, appears to be very, very strong, has decent heavy hands for at least the women's division. And then you had Kareckaite, I think I'm pronouncing it right now. She's primarily a striker. She lost in her last fight against Diana Barboza. It was a competitive fight. She had some moments. She was getting out-grappled, but she was able to get up here and there. It's not like she got completely dominated. Before that, she got a split decision against 3-0 Carly Judas. Listen, this is a 50-50 fight. I think this is low-level women's MMA. What's crazy is Caliari's 5'3" to Kareckaite's 5'9". That's insane. 6-inch height advantage in a women's MMA fight. And then we also have a 9-inch reach advantage for Kareckaite. I'm picking Kareckaite to get it done. Could Caliari be able to find a submission finish? Maybe, because Kareckaite's grappling isn't great. But with that reach and height advantage, I think it's going to be hard to get the takedowns. I think it's going to be hard to find those damaging shots on the feet. And I just see Kareckaite being able to land, outstrike her. She's landing decent shots against Diana Barboza. She wasn't completely inept on the ground. And Caliari wasn't like some world-class. I mean, the armbar that she got, her opponent, whose name I cannot pronounce, was on top and just left her arm in there for too long. And then literally basically postured up and gave her the armbar. It almost, when I watched it, I was like, oh, when I watched it back, I was like, oh my, this almost seems like it was rigged. But yeah, I'm going to go Ernesto Kareckaite. I'm going to say decision. I could see maybe her finishing her, but you know, women's MMA, it's primarily decisions. So I'm going to go Kareckaite via decision. Next fight on the card. This is actually a banger. I actually like this matchup. We have Preston Parsons versus Jacobe Smith. Jacobe Smith looked incredible in Dana White's Contender Series. He's 9-0. Went out there, absolutely demolished Christian. I forgot how to pronounce his last name. Absolutely demolished him. Beat him up on the feet. Beat him up in the clinch. Took him down. Had some unorthodox techniques. Like at one point, he was like hanging on his back when they were standing, and he was trying to get a takedown. He jumps up and like knees to the side of his opponent's knee and took him down. It was very, unique. You don't see that in the UFC. He just seems like an absolute killer, man. Not like I'm not anointing him like the elite level talent just yet, but he's a guy. There's very few times you watch a fight and you're like, damn, this guy's really trying to hurt his opponent. And I get those vibes from Jacobe Smith. Like, he goes out there, has full intensity at all times. I do kind of worry about his gas tank, but he did all right in his last fight. You know, his opponent survived the first round. He put a lot of damage on him. He still had decent cardio in the second round, so I'm assuming it's pretty good. He has good striking and good grappling. He's primarily a wrestler. Has heavy hands, though. Is willing to strike. Preston Parsons, I think, is a bit underrated. He lost his last fight against Oban Elliott, who's really good. Was able to out-grapple him. And then before that, beat Matthew Semmelsberger, who isn't particularly good. But he's just, Preston Parsons is kind of, you know, inconsistent. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And he's not particularly great anywhere. His striking has improved. I picked him against Matthew Semmelsberger. He has a win against Evan Elder as well, which is a decent opponent. But yeah, I think Jacobe Smith, I think this is a matchup. They're like, okay, Jacobe Smith has really good takedowns. You know, even in his Dana White's Contender Series fight, he picked a dude up and slammed him in the first round. And Parsons, while he has good grappling, his takedown defense isn't great. He's hard to keep down. He has good scrambles. But Jacobe Smith will get you down. You may work back to your feet. He'll shoot in on it. He'll throw a couple heavy shots, shoot in on a double leg, and take you down. He has power in both his hands. I could see him getting a finish, but Parsons is not easy to finish and hasn't, you know, been KO'd for a while. It's been over 3.5 years when he fought Daniel Rodriguez when he got KO'd. So I'm going to go Jacobe Smith to get it done via decision. I can see him out striking him, out grappling him, beating him up on the ground, control time, getting it done. But don't be surprised if Preston Parsons puts up somewhat of a fight. But I'm going Jacobe Smith to get it done. Next fight on the card, we have Thiago Moisés versus Trey Ogden. Listen, this is kind of a tricky matchup because every time I underestimate Trey Ogden, somehow he gets it done. He's a good striker. He's a good grappler. He's kind of old, but somehow he gets it done against Loic Radzhabov. Then before that, Kurt Holobaugh, which isn't that crazy of a win. Before that, he should have beat Nicholas Mota. But it ended up being an early stoppage. He should have had it done. He lost to Ignacio Bahamondes via decision, but before that, beat Daniel Zellhuber. A lot of people think that's an aberration, but nonetheless, he's kind of been on a little bit of a streak now, basically a 3-fight win streak. But I think Thiago Moisés is too good, probably, for Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden is kind of one of those mid-tier guys trying to become somewhat of a contender. I'm not saying Thiago Moisés is a contender, but at one point he was a ranked lightweight. And Thiago Moisés' striking has improved. He has really good jiu-jitsu. So if Trey Ogden wins this, it's probably just going to be trying to, you know, kickbox at range, make the fight boring. But I think Moisés is going to implement the grappling. The grappling is going to open up the striking. I see it kind of being a gritty fight. I feel like Trey Ogden always makes fights kind of boring. Like, Trey Ogden is so unassuming. I don't know how to explain it. But I think Thiago Moisés gets it done. Lost to Ludovic Kline. Ludovic Kline's a really good kickboxer. Beat Mitch Ramirez, which honestly, even though he finished him, that performance hasn't aged that well. Lost to Benoit Saint-Denis. You know, that didn't look like it aged that well, that badly at one point in time, but now it's like, okay, how good is Benoit Saint-Denis? But I think Thiago Moisés, 29 years old, arguably coming into his prime, elite level jiu-jitsu, elite level submission skills, where Trey Ogden's just kind of Mr. Mediocre everywhere. I think Moisés gets it done. I think he'll be able to land decently enough on the feet. I think his striking is improving fight to fight. I think he's going to be the faster guy, and I think he'll be able to get positional control in the clinch and in the ground, maybe, or on the ground, and take the back a little bit here and there, has better scrambles, implement his jiu-jitsu, look for submissions. I think Trey Ogden has the BJJ to avoid getting submitted, so ultimately I'm going to pick Thiago Moisés to get it done via decision. Next fight on the card, we have Marco Tulio versus Ihor Potieria. This is another Dana White's Contender Series guy, Marco Tulio. I actually just got done watching up fight footage from him. He's a finisher. He has nasty power, super explosive. Got a spinning back kick to the body finish on Dana White's Contender Series. Super impressive. Looked good before then. Then you have Ihor Potieria, who lost to Cesar Almeida in his last fight. Lost to Michel Pereira, got finished lightning fast in that fight. His last win was kind of an upset win over Robert Brichek. I forgot how you pronounce that. I think it's Brichek, but maybe the B silent. Before that, had a war with Rodolfo Bellato. Got KO'd by Carlos Ulberg. At one point, I think he fought Shogun Hu at a split decision. Potieria is not like elite anywhere. I think he's going to try to grapple in this fight, and I don't think it's going to be particularly successful. He has a 3-inch height advantage, 1-inch reach advantage over Tulio. But I just think, the guy in Tulio, I think he's going to get it done. I think this could be one of those fights where maybe we misjudge him because he hasn't fought the best opposition, 6-2, 6-4, 5-2. He did fight a guy who was 35-19, which is crazy. That guy has that type of record. That's an Anthony Smith type record. But I think Potieria is going to try to grapple. I don't see him being super successful, and I see him getting outstruck on the feet, and Potieria will try to brawl a bit. He will get a little reckless and wild, and I see him getting clipped on the feet. So I'm going to pick Tulio. Tulio has quite a bit of finishes. He's 12-1, hasn't lost in a while, and I see him finding Ihor Potieria's chin and putting him away. Potieria's taken a decent amount of damage in his last few fights. Got beat up by Cesar Almeida. Actually got fouled in that fight a couple times as well. Got beat up by Michel Pereira and submitted. Took a lot of damage in the Breachek fight. Took a lot of damage in the Bellato fight. I think this is the fight where he gets his lights brutally shut off. I'm going to pick Marco Tulio first round KO. Next fight on the card, we have Jose Johnson versus Felipe Bunes. Look, I'm leaning Jose Johnson. I think they're both decent grapplers. I don't really rate either one of these guys particularly high. Jose Johnson's coming off a loss to Asul Almabayev. That's not a horrible loss to have. Almabayev is doing quite well. Before that, a win over Chad Anheliger. Doesn't really mean much. Before that, got twistered by Damon Blackshear. I believe that was on short notice. And then Felipe Bunes got KO'd by Joshua Van in his last fight. And then beat a couple guys in LFA who aren't particularly great. Lost to Jussier Formiga, who was a former UFC guy out in LFA. He's 35 years old. Felipe Bunes is going to try to grapple. Jose Johnson, I think, has good enough grappling. Plus, he has a massive height advantage, not a reach advantage. It's crazy. He's 6 foot tall compared to 5'7" for Bunes. But he only has a 71.5-inch reach to Bunes' 71-inch reach. So I see Bunes trying to implement the grappling, not having a whole lot of success. I think Johnson's a decent grappler. And I think if Bunes wins this fight, he's probably going to find a sub. But he's 13-7. He's never beat elite level opposition. Not that I'm saying Jose Johnson's some elite level absolute superstar. But I think he's decent. And he's much younger. He's only 29 years old at 35 years old. So I'm going to go Jose Johnson to get it done. How is he going to win? He's not, I don't know. He's not like a crazy finisher, but he may be able to get this done via finish. I'm going to pick Jose Johnson just to get a decision. I think Bunes, he's going to get finished by Joshua Van, but I don't think Jose Johnson hasn't shown me enough just yet that his striking is so good he'll finish Felipe Bunes. So I'm going to pick Jose Johnson via decision, maybe like a 29-28 decision win. Next fight on the card, we have Puno Healy Soriano versus Uros Medic. Man, this actually could be a banger. This is the first fight on the main card. I like this matchup quite a bit. This makes, a fight night card. This is a quality fight on a UFC Apex card. Let me put it that way. Puno Healy Soriano coming off a win over Miguel Baeza. Before that, lost to Dustin Stolfus, got finished there. Before they got brutalized by Roman Kopylov, got body kicked to hell. Before that, a win over Dolce Lugambula. Before that, a loss to Nick Maximoff, which is a horrible loss. Doesn't have great grappling. But Uros Medic isn't a guy that goes out there and tries to implement his grappling. He's got a win over Tim Means in his last fight, KO'd him. Lost to Miktabek Oralbai, which he got neck cranked. And there's no shame in that. Oralbai is a decent opposition. Beat Matthew Semmelsberger via KO. Beat Omar Morales. Literally, I believe all Uros Medic's all wins are via finish. And Puno Healy Soriano is very, very durable, but he's taken a lot of damage. So something's got to give here. And I think Medic is just cleaner on the feet. I think Puno Healy Soriano is kind of like that Mark Hunt style, like that Tafa Brothers style, where he just kind of marches forward and tries to land big shots. Udo Medic is lighter on the feet, has better kickboxing, and I see him just doing more damage. And I don't see Soriano mixing in any grappling. I don't see Medic mixing in any grappling. It's going to be primarily on the feet, and I see Soriano taking a beating on the feet. He'll have some moments, but unless he clips Medic and KOs him, I don't see him winning this fight. So I'm going to pick Uros Medic to get it done. Does he finish Soriano? Soriano is very, very durable, man. He's very, very durable. I'm going to say, because I don't really see him like beating him up to the body like Kopylov did, or I don't see Uros Medic finding a submission. But you know what? I'm going to say Medic finishes him. I'm going to say Medic finishes him. I'm going to go second round KO for Uros Medic. He finds an opening on the feet. All Medic's wins are via finish, basically. So I'm picking Medic via second round KO. Catches him with a shot on the feet after styling on him for a bit. Starts to get his rhythm. Catches him with a big shot. Puts him down. Ground and pound TKO second round for Uros Medic. Next fight on the card. This is a tricky matchup. Very, very tricky matchup. We have Christian Rodriguez versus Austin Bashi. Very, very tricky matchup to predict. My gut instinct was Christian Rodriguez because Christian Rodriguez, while he gets taken down, he's an amazing defensive grappler. But the problem was he did a lot of that at bantamweight. And then he comes up to featherweight and he loses to Julian Erosa and gets submitted. I mean, he was winning that fight, clipping him on the feet, but then eventually ended up getting guillotined from guard, which he didn't even shoot into the guillotine, which was crazy. Before that, got a split decision win over Isaac Dalgarian, which a lot of people did not think he won. Isaac Dalgarian's a very good grappler, had some good control in the first round, but then started to wear down. And, even if you look back at the Raul Rosas Jr. fight, he got out-grappled in the first round badly. And Austin Bashi is a very good wrestler and has good control and has good jiu-jitsu. And I would pick Christian Rodriguez, but my problem is this is now up a weight class. So I don't know if Christian Rodriguez is going to have the ability like he was when he was down at bantamweight missing weight and being able to get controlled and taken down, but being able to find his way back up eventually. I don't know if it's going to work at featherweight against a guy more his size or a guy, a little bit bigger than him, because Christian Rodriguez, even against Julian Erosa, looked a little bit pudgy. He looked like he did belong at bantamweight. So I think Austin Bashi with his grappling, he wasn't fighting the best opposition, but he got a finish on Dana White's Contender Series. Before that, he's fighting at Kentucky State Fair against Zach Riley. And I just think that Austin Bashi is going to try to grapple. He's undefeated, 13-0. He has okay striking. I think Christian Rodriguez, without a doubt, has better striking. But I just don't think Christian Rodriguez defensively with his grappling is going to be as successful up a weight class. I think he's going to be pudgy. I think he's going to be the smaller guy. I think Austin Bashi is going to be stronger. I see it be a competitive fight where Christian Rodriguez is constantly trying to scramble off the bottom. Unless Bashi gasses out, then I see Bashi getting it done with grappling. I see him maybe even finding a submission on Christian Rodriguez. If he can put some of that damage, like that ground and pound damage like Isaac Dalgarian was putting on him, I think Bashi could find a submission. He has a bunch of submissions throughout his career. And I think up a weight class Christian Rodriguez is not going to be as good as he was at bantamweight, being able to stifle some of the grapplers, which, to be honest, if you look back at it, it seems like that. But if you actually watch, he's getting taken down quite a bit. So it's not a matter of if he gets taken down. It's a matter of can he scramble back to his feet, which I do believe he will be able to do here. But I think Bashi's just constantly going to be on with the grappling. I'm going to pick Austin Bashi to get it done. I'm going to say via decision. I could see him finding a sub on Christian Rodriguez, but I'm going to pick him via decision, just out grappling him, taking it super safe. It's his UFC debut. I see him getting it done via decision. I'm going to say 29-28 decision. I see Rodriguez maybe in one round, maybe the first round, having his best round. But I don't know, man. I'm thinking back to that Raul Rosas Jr. fight, and he's losing that round. So maybe like a third round after Bashi's tired from all the scrambles and Rodriguez is working his way back up and Bashi's more weight drained. Maybe Rodriguez gets a third round of momentum when Bashi's tired and can't get the grappling going. So I see a 29-28 decision win for Austin Bashi. Next fight on the card, we have Chris Curtis versus Roman Kopylov. Very tough fight to predict. Honestly, very tough. I've been back and forth on this pick here. Chris Curtis is super underrated. His last fight was a loss to Brendan Allen via split decision. I think he won that fight. Because he tore his hamstring in the last 10 seconds, somehow they give it to Brendan Allen. I thought he won that fight. Before that, beat Marc-Andre Barriault. It was a split decision. He clearly won. Before that, he was getting styled on by Nasruddin Imavov. There was a clash of heads. But to be honest, look where Imavov's been. Even if you want to count that as a loss in a weird way, Imavov's top of the division fighting Israel Adesanya soon. Before that loss to Kelvin Gastelum, there was a head clash there that kind of lost him the fight. And before that, KO'd Joaquin Buckley, which wasn't that long ago. It was 2 years ago. I believe it was 2 years ago this past November. So it was a little over 2 years ago now, which look how well that's aged. I think Chris Curtis would probably be better at welterweight, but I think because he's getting older, he doesn't want to cut the weight. And then you have Roman Kopylov coming off a win over Cesar Almeida, was able to implement the grappling against Cesar Almeida. Before that, lost to Fluffy Hernandez, no shame in that. Before that, beat Josh Fremd. Before that, beat Claudio Ribeiro, nasty head kick KO. I think this is a 50-50 fight. And honestly, what's making me lean one way or the other, I really could go back and forth. Like Chris Curtis's boxing is really clean, but I think Kopylov has a kicking advantage. And I just think Chris Curtis sometimes starts slow. And then you think back to, his fight against Jack Hermanson. He didn't really get going until the third round. He won the third round. If it was a 5-round fight, maybe he wins that fight. Against Roman Kopylov, if he gets to start it to a slow start, then I could see Kopylov chopping up the legs, landing to the body, and maybe winning this fight. Plus, he's much younger. At some point, age has got to catch up to you. 37 years old. Reach disadvantage, height disadvantage, but they have roughly the same reach. Kopylov's 32 and Curtis is 37. That over 35, I know the higher the weight class, the less it is of an effect. But I see this being a close fight where Roman Kopylov gets it done 29-28. I see Chris Curtis getting like a slow start, losing the first round, maybe just barely, then losing the second round, Roman Kopylov landing his kicks and moving well. Then third round, I could see Chris Curtis really starting to get into a flow and landing with his hands. But it's crazy. I mean, again, I thought he beat Brendan Allen in his last fight. I picked him to beat Brendan Allen. It was 8 months ago. He's recovering from an injury. That's 9 months off. I think this is a close fight, but I'm going to go Roman Kopylov via decision, 29-28, close decision. I could even see controversial decision. It seems like Chris Curtis is always in some type of controversy. So I'm picking Roman Kopylov to win, razor close, split decision, 29-28 is what I'm going to pick. Controversial decision. Next fight on the card, we have the featured fight on the card. We have Cesar Almeida versus Abdul Razak Alhassan. Cesar Almeida, elite level kickboxer. Even fought Alex Pereira in kickboxing back in the day, I think a couple times. And he's 36 years old, but he's kind of young for the sport, He hasn't been around forever. He hasn't fought the most elite competition. He lost to Roman Kopylov, but basically got out-grappled in that fight, was winning in the striking, and it was a split decision close fight. After that, got a win over Ihor Potieria. Abdul is like a brawler with nasty KO power. He's always looking to KO you. In his last fight, got crazy and looked for the finish against Cody Bumdage, and Cody Bumdage put on an absolute performance and ends up getting a no contest. Before that, got arm triangle by Joe Pyfer. Before that, KO'd Claudio Hiberio. Before that, lost to Joaquin Buckley via split decision. He's almost 40 years old, though, and he's kind of one-dimensional, and he's 12-6 overall, and he primarily strikes. And I think primarily striking against an elite-level kickboxer like Cesar Almeida is a bad, bad recipe. So I think Cesar Almeida gets it done, just cleaner, straighter punches. And I think Abdul, while he's super explosive early, he does slow down a little bit. And I think Cesar Almeida has shown he can go 3 rounds. He went 3 hard rounds with Ihor Potieria. Didn't have the best gas tank. But I could see him go, like if the fight goes long, I don't see Cesar Almeida being like brutally exposed by any means. And Alhassan is one of these crazy guys who comes out swinging swinging with it, all his power in every punch and slows down after the first round. So I'm going to pick Cesar Almeida within his elite level kickboxing. I'm going to pick him to go out there and just kind of pick apart Abdul Razak Alhassan, beat him up, be able to control the range and just win the fight. I'm going to pick him to KO him, man. I'm going to pick him to KO him. I think he catches him and KOs him. So I'm going to pick Cesar Almeida, second round KO in the featured fight of the card. And I actually love this fight. It's kind of a banger. Alhassan has a chance early, but the longer this fight goes, the more it leans in Cesar Almeida's favor. And Cesar Almeida is just a much more polished kickboxer. So I'm going Cesar Almeida, second round KO. Next fight on the card, co-main event. Oh, yeah, great co-main event in UFC. Great for the first fight card back for 2025. Can't wait. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Carlston Harris. I don't know who to pick. Ponzinibbio's lost 4 out of his last 5. But you add context to it. Sally Hoff was a split decision loss, close fight. Kevin Holland fight, he was winning like every single round, then would get rocked at the end of the round, lose the round. But then he eventually got finished, I think in the 3rd round. Fight before that, he beat Alex Morono. Then lost to Michelle Pineda, which was a close fight, split decision, which isn't bad. Split decision loss to Jeff Neal. I mean, how crazy is that? 3 out of these 4 losses are via split decision. That's crazy. And the one fight, at one point in time, if you haven't been watching the sport for a while, at one point in time, Santiago Ponzinibbio was a title contender. And he had injuries and this and that. And then you have Carlston Harris coming off a KO loss against Chaos Williams. Beat Jeremiah Wells, but was losing that fight and found an anaconda choke late. Beat Jarrett Gooden, not that great. Lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov, no shame in that. And he's not particularly young. He's 37 years old himself. He has some good power, but he's kind of like a wrestle boxer. Like, he wants to wrestle, but he has decent power, but his striking isn't like super technical or accurate, or he's not giving a lot of guys trouble on the feet. He has some chokes. Obviously, found that Anaconda choke on Jeremiah Wells. I don't know. I'm gonna pick Santiago Ponzinibbio in the co-main event, but I'm not like gushing with confidence with it. I just think he's fought way better opposition than Carlston Harris. Carlston Harris doesn't have like any crazy wins. You could be like, oh yeah, this was such a great win against elite level opposition. Ponzinibbio's hung in there with a lot of elite guys. Even has, some okay wins throughout his career. He's getting older, but Carlston Harris is old as well. I think Ponzinibbio has kind of kept his speed decently as he's aged. I'm going to go Ponzinibbio to get it done. I'm going to say decision. I'm going to say Ponzinibbio is able to go out there and just outstrike him on the feet, not get clipped with big shots. I think he's going to be fending off takedowns. Carlston Harris is definitely going to be looking to take him down and wrestle him. But I think Ponzinibbio is a decent defensive grappler unless he's fighting like elite level opposition. So I'm going to pick Santiago Ponzinibbio to get it done via decision. Outstrikes him, wins a decision in the co-main event. Next fight on the card, the fight you guys have all been waiting for me to break down. Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Ribas 2. I don't know. I've been dreading doing this prediction video because I don't know who to pick in this fight. Amanda Ribas won, but it was in 2019. That's 6 years ago. They've kind of both been inconsistent. They only get hyped up because they're simps that like their appearance. Mackenzie Dern coming off a win over Lupita Godinez, which was a pretty close fight, competitive fight. Before that, lost to Lemos. Before that, lost to Jessica Andrade. Beat Angela Hill in a close fight. Lost to Jian Xiaonan, which isn't a horrible loss to have. And then Ribas is coming off a loss against Rose Namajunas. Beat Luana Pinheiro, but she was losing that fight until the end and got a finish. Lost to Macy Barbara. Beat Viviane Araujo. Lost to Caitlin Sermonara. They're both 31. They're both in the same kind of category here. They're really both in the same category, in my opinion. They both have decent jiu-jitsu. They're both kind of hyped up because there's a decent simp audience for them. They both like to implement their jiu-jitsu. Here's what I'm going to go with. Mackenzie Dern, I believe, has improved much more since 2019. Ribas is kind of the same. Now, Ribas did have the striking advantage, but Dern's striking was absolutely atrocious in 2019. It's not great now, but I think it's much better compared to the Dern in 2019. And I think she has the better jiu-jitsu and submission ability, but Ribas is very good defensively on the ground, and even, had some moments where she ended up on top of Dern because Dern was looking for submissions in their first fight. So I really, it's hard to pick this fight. I could see Ribas avoiding the grappling and outstriking her, but I also think Dern's striking has improved, and she actually will take on the land one, and she has some decent power. So I'm going to pick Dern to get it done. Competitive fight. I see her being able to, land some decent shots on the feet. I think she can implement some of the her wrestling and entries are just horrible, though. That's why I'm struggling with this pick. I'm going to pick Dern. Dern's going to get it done. I see her being able to implement her grappling a little bit more nowadays. I think she's improved. I think Ribas has stayed the same. Dern has improved. Therefore, Dern will win the fight. Okay, is that a good enough justification for the UFC 101 main event? The return in 2025? I think she'll be able to implement some of the grappling. I think I could see her finding a submission in this fight. I could see her getting close to submissions in a round where not much happens, so she therefore wins the round. Ribas is good enough where I could see her not getting submitted. I mean, when she has gotten finished, she got finished via ground and pound via Macy Barbara or from Macy Barbara. Lost to Rose Namajunas, no shame in that. Rose is a decent fighter, even though Pat Barry's ruined her career. But I'm going to pick Dern to get it done. I think she's going to be stronger in the clinch. I think she's going to be forcing the grappling. I think her striking has improved much more than it was, back in 2019 when they initially fought. And I think Ribas is more of a volume striker, where Dern, I don't want to say she's a power striker. I'll get laughed out of the building, but she has some decent power on her shots, even though she does walk into some shots. So it's a tough fight to pick. I'm going to go ahead and pick Mackenzie Dern. I'm going to say via decision. Ribas is pretty durable. I'm going to pick Mackenzie Dern to get it done in the main event of UFC 101. What a fight to return to. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for UFC Vegas 101. Oh my God, Dern versus Ribas 2. Anyway, boys. UFC 311 is right around the corner. I cannot wait for UFC 311. Join me for my fight watch along for 311. I'll probably be live for Dern versus Ribas. I'm debating about it, but I'll probably be live. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy prediction videos and MMA content. Turn on notifications. Like this video if you could. I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.